Dr. Brent Clark, thanks for joining us again on the Illinois Channel.
Sure.
We're here at the Leadership Alliance in Springfield for those who are on the management side of education. First of all, what's the purpose of gatherings such as this?
Well, primarily it's to kind of get our advocacy efforts organized and channeled and focused for this coming spring session, knowing that we're going into a very tumultuous time, the last 3 months of the legislative session, March, April, and May, very key moments for our stakeholders in the education community to be focused and communicating with legislators. Big determinations coming up here on a K-12 budget, a new funding formula, revenue to back that up, and other pieces of the grand bargain that are on the table right now in the Senate.
We've been talking, stakeholders have been talking about reformulating the education funding formula, that it disadvantages those in the agricultural communities or where there are low property values. How doable is that, or is that going to have to be set aside to, once again, to get the funding in this environment where just getting any budget passed is a challenge?
Well, I think you heard today, I think you heard the panel talk about how important it is to have that new funding model be an integral part of any type of legislative package that comes out of the Senate. You also heard the lead sponsors, both Republican and Democratic in the House, talk about their bill, which is exactly the evidence-based funding model bill, which is the brand new reform bill that distributes money in a more equitable capacity across Illinois.
From what we've heard here at this conference, our spending should be right at about $9,000 a pupil. Just below that. We're spending about $6,100 per pupil, and that's higher than what it had been in recent years past here. How doable is it, do you think, to get it near that 9,000 level, one, and two, what else can the state do to make life easier on your organization, the administrators, whether it's releasing you from some of the mandates or cutting regulations? What's on your list of most desired?
Well, let's take those in order here. So first, in order to fund a formula, you have to have sufficient revenue within your state coffers to do that. We have proven to anyone that cares to look as a state that we do not have sufficient revenue to run programs in Illinois. So it's a foregone conclusion that if we're going to have a successful new funding formula, there has to be new additional revenues that arrive at the state of Illinois so that they can distribute those to school districts. So that's number one. That's also part of that larger grand bargain package in the Senate. It ties various things. It ties the desire of property tax relief. It ties revenue enhancements. It ties mandate relief. It ties a funding formula. It ties workers' comp. There's about 13 bills that's all connected, interconnected, that tries to balance, if you will, and that being a key term here, balance the needs and desires of our state. And so having to have new revenue to pay our bills and fund a new formula is a prerequisite. Now, in terms of making life a bit easier, the first thing is having certainty. Certainty of the revenue that a school district is going to receive and when they're going to receive it. So that's preeminent, having certainty of the revenues that are going to arrive at a school district so that a district can plan for the personnel and the programs that they can intend to run within a given school year. That's number one. Now, mandates have always been an issue, but there's a variety of ways to get at that. And, one way is to just pay for those things, and then they're no longer an unfunded mandate. They're just a paid-for mandate. So it changes things, right? So it really goes to, are you willing to pay for the mandate or not pay for the mandate? If you're not willing to pay for it, then probably there should be some local context to decision-making on whether you have to carry out that mandate or not. On the other hand, if the state puts the money up to pay for the mandate, then okay, they mandate it, they pay for it, then we should employ that. So it's kind of looking at it from that perspective.
One last thing as we stand here, you're going to have your members, those attendees going over to the Capitol and talking to lawmakers.
Yes.
There's two proposals being floated out there that seem to be in conflict. One is to have a property tax freeze that the governor's proposed, and the other is to, going forward, transfer the cost of the school teacher pensions to the local districts.
Yes.
What impact would you say that would have on school districts?
Those two items, property tax freeze and what we call the employer normal cost shift, those are diametrically opposed concepts. You can't compress or depress, suppress, whatever the right word is, local abilities to raise dollars and at the same time shift nearly $1 billion of new cost onto those school districts. So they're going to have to pick and choose. And if I'm them, I think the taxpayer, the voter, understands property tax freezes much more simply than they do an employer normal cost shift. Most voters wouldn't know what an employer normal cost shift was. I think they understand what a property tax freeze is. And I think when you're given those two choices, they'll probably pick this property tax freeze at some point. Now, that's not to say that there's not some things that could be done with pensions that are reasonable, that could be worked into the deal at the end. And we've got some ideas on that we're not ready to go public with yet, but we will be talking behind closed doors and already have been to some degree with some of the legislators about that.
Always good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.
You bet. Thank you.